What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Charles here from the CG Sports Podcast, and we are back in the building with my guy Papi Solo. How you doing this morning, bro?
I'm doing great, bro. Kanye dropped Donda, so everything is right in the world, and I'm excited for this fight tonight, man. It should be a spectacle.
Yeah. So for those of you guys, you see the title. This is gonna be I don't really know. It's kind of a Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley preview, analysis, prediction. So we're throwing everything into one, just so you know. Keep things simple here, but I do want to say, everybody, and you see in this video, go in the comments, wish my boy Papi Solo a happy birthday. It was his birthday yesterday. He's no longer 53. He is now 54.
Yes, sir. 54, man. Close to 60, man. I almost made it, man.
So y'all make sure to go wish him a happy birthday. But nonetheless, let's get into this fight. So Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley. I would talk about all the other fights, but to be honest, you're not here for that. No one's here to talk about any of the other fights. We're here to talk about the main event of the evening. So let's talk a little bit just to get it started, and I'll put a little timestamp if you guys don't want to hear about all the background information, just want to hear about the current fight. But for now, we're going to talk about some background information. So for those of you guys who don't know, Jake Paul kind of came onto the scene and just one day wanted to be a boxer. Obviously, he's been a YouTube star, Viner. He was on Disney Channel, a whole bunch of stuff. So this guy decides one day that he wants to box. He boxes Deji, who I believe is KSI's brother, or he has some relation to him. Won the fight by decision and waited about a year or two, then decided he wanted to fight Nate Robinson. Won with a first-round knockout, which I will say was impressive, but for a 40-year-old retired NBA player, he could still do better. He made an upgrade. He fought Ben Askren, who is a former double champion in the WBC, was in the UFC, but this is also a wrestler and a guy who was just coming off back surgery. But nonetheless, I'm not going to take anything away from him. All respect for this dude for actually taking boxing seriously and not being like these other dudes. So I respect that. And he's called out a lot of guys lately. He's obviously called out Kamaru Usman, who's currently the welterweight champion in the UFC, which I think is absolutely insane. He was talking to Masvidal, even though he was the one who trained him, wanted to fight him, wants to fight Canelo, he wants to fight Conor, wants to fight Dylan Dennis. Too many guys he's called out, Nate Diaz even. But there was one guy he called out that actually accepted the challenge, and that was Tyron Woodley. Now, just to give you guys a little background on who he is, for those of you who don't know, this is a former UFC welterweight champion, and he was very dominant at the division, came up very quickly, beat out Robbie Lawler, who is one of the better welterweights of all time, held the belt for a couple years until he got beat out by Kamaru Usman. This was back in 2018, and just for the record, hasn't won a fight since he lost that title. It's been 3 years, and he is still yet to win a fight in the UFC or anywhere for that matter. So he's clearly a proven striker, which is obviously something that needs to be said, because all the other guys Jake Paul has fought don't have hands in the slightest. And he does have proven cardio, which leads us into our first topic, which is, can Jake Paul go the distance? Now, we know that Tyron Woodley has cardio for days. This guy could fight 10 rounds if he wanted to with Jake Paul. And so what I want to ask you is, obviously with Jake Paul, we've seen his first two fights only went through no more than the first round. And his other fight that went 5 rounds was not a professional fight. So what I want to know from you is, do you think Jake Paul can take Tyron Woodley the distance?
This is what, a 6-round fight?
I believe it's 8. I believe it is
8. Okay. The more the better. I believe, since this is not UFC, because Tyron Woodley he was a well-rounded fighter. You know, he could take you to the ground. He could do things like that. With just boxing, and because of Paul's reach, I believe he can survive, man. I mean, we all see what goes on when you put a fighter in there with a YouTuber or whatever for entertainment, and we all thought maybe was going to knock out, was it Jake's brother, Logan?
Yeah, Logan.
We all think knock him out, but he went the distance with the best fighter of our generation. So at this point, I'm not expecting any knockouts. I'm not expecting, especially from the Paul brothers. They seem to be too part of the culture at this point. They're just fighting for entertainment and going to the next fight. For Woodley, this just shows me that he's done with the UFC. You know, even before this fight, he started losing around the time he started his rapping career, and I think entertainment and things like this are more his niche now, and he don't care about being the best. But I hope he has some pride and he knocks this dude out. Please have some integrity.
Yeah, and we'll go into that a little later, but I agree. I don't think that Woodley has anything left to do in the UFC. Obviously, his last 3 fights, he fought Vicente Luque, his most recent fight, got knocked out, fought Gilbert Burns, lost in a decision, got flat out dominated, and of course, lost to Kamaru Usman for the title, which was another full-on domination. I don't think he has any reason to stay in the UFC at this point. I think he's made his legacy with the title run that he had. He took down some good challengers, and eventually, obviously, his time came, and that's going to take me actually into our next subject, what you said about Woodley. Hopefully he has some pride. It really does feel like coming into this fight that it's knockout or nothing for Tyron Woodley. We spoke about it a little bit, that if Jake Paul, let's just say even if Woodley wins the fight, but he wins by decision, wins rounds.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, Jake Paul's going to say, I went the distance with a professional fighter. The same thing he said when he said, I knocked out a professional fighter. He's not going to tell you that Woodley just came off of 2 surgeries. He's not going to tell you this is a guy that hasn't won a fight in 3 years. They're not going to tell you this is a guy that only has 1 punch. He's going to say, I want to fight with a professional fighter. So I really do think it's knockout or nothing for Woodley coming into it.
Yeah, you mentioned that, he's taking boxing seriously. You got to respect it. But to me, until he's fighting, some very notable amateurs or even some lesser known pros, I'm not taking this seriously at all. In my head, bro, and I'm very cynical and skeptical, this is, bro, he paid off Willie not to hit him too hard. Like, I feel like this is purely a clown show, purely just a carnival, watching 2 dudes fight. I pray we see a knockout, bro. Either way, I don't even care if Woodley gets knocked out. I just want to, or knocked down. I just want to see some evidence that this fight is authentic and real. And I don't want to see, like when I saw Mayweather holding up Logan and stuff like that. I want to see these dudes go at it.
Well, yeah, I agree. And comparing their last 2 fights between the Paul brothers, obviously Jake, his last fight was against Ben Askren, lasted no more than 45 seconds. Ben fell out, and it's a very mixed subject where some people think, Jake knocked Ben out, he has the power, he got a good shot in, and others think Ben didn't take it seriously, he just wanted a final payday before he gives up on fighting forever. So it's something we'll never really know because, neither of these guys have really spoken enough about it, despite Jake Paul just, hyping himself up, and Ben really hasn't said anything about it. Whereas with the Logan and Floyd fight, that one felt like a real fight. Like, these guys were really, Floyd was really throwing with power, at least for what he has at his age, and it really felt like he was trying to finish that fight at times. And it'll be interesting, like you said, to see if Woodley comes out with that same mentality. But from what we've seen, and we'll get into a little bit more about more of the pre-fight antics and stuff, but from what it seems, both guys are taking this fight very seriously, which takes me into my next subject, and this is something you spoke about earlier, is the reach advantage. And the big question is, does the reach advantage matter? Now, we don't have exact arm lengths for either of these guys, but just for the record, Jake Paul is 6'1", Tyron Woodley is 5'9". So a clear reach advantage will be there for Paul. But the thing is, with Woodley, can his experience maybe outmatch the reach advantage of Paul?
Now, if this is a UFC fight, yes. I don't think Paul's reach will help him win the fight, but I think it's going to help him keep that distance where he doesn't catch one from Woodley for to catch that right. So I think it won't help him win, but it'll help him, keep the fight moving and help him go the distance. But it's not going to help him win by any means.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think we'll get into that a little later about how big that right hand has been for Tyron Woodley throughout his career. But it's another big thing too, is like you said, in the UFC, even if someone has a reach advantage on you, you could take the fight to the ground. And Tyron Woodley, an all-American wrestler, was pretty good at doing that. So for him, obviously being a little shorter at his weight class in a mixed martial arts situation is a lot different than boxing, where everything's going on the feet. But I completely agree with what you're saying there, with him having to, maybe his reach advantage will help him go the distance, but I don't think it'll help him win in any way. Maybe, he could pull that jab, avoid that right hand like you said. But other than that, I don't think it'll pay too much dividends. And actually, he's had a couple fights in his career where he was at a reach disadvantage, and it didn't really affect too much more. Most consistently, it was with Darren Till, who he fought back in 2018. And Till, same height, 6'1", and Woodley had no problems with it. But like we said, obviously different scenario, different type of fighting. He's got to stay on the feet the whole time. So the next thing we're going to go into is a little more of a mental thing. And I spoke to you a little bit about it before, is that Jake Paul, there was some situation with his team, and they were doing something towards Tyron Woodley's mother. Now, for those of you who don't know a lot about Tyron Woodley, this is a guy that usually stays pretty composed. He's fought against some pretty good trash talkers, some guys who really play the mental game well, and he really had no problems at all with it. He's a guy that really just stays composed, gets into the cage or gets in the ring for this matter, and just handles business. It's usually that simple. He's not a guy that shows a lot of emotions, but we've seen it a lot from the press conferences and even at the weigh-ins. Tyron seems to be showing a lot of emotion. He seems very, pissed off, and he's getting very emotional. And I gotta wonder how much that's gonna affect the fight tonight, considering that we haven't seen that from him before.
I do respect Paul's shit talk. I'm a huge supporter of shit talk. It can go too far sometimes, but if you don't go too far sometimes, that means you ain't talking shit good enough. So I understand, there's some sensitive topics, but Tyron Woodley has to back it up and knock this dude out, man. Like, Paul can't just keep getting in the ring and talking crap about these dudes and not getting the punishment for it. So, maybe Paul is just that guy. I guess we're gonna find out tonight.
Yeah, and he's a guy who really has tried to convince the public that he is a real boxer. He can be a real fighter. He wants to do this seriously. And to be honest, I think it's shown when you look at some of the other celebrities, like we see in the TikTok or YouTuber boxing, stuff like that. That feels more like amateur, just fighting just to do it, just messing around. But when I watch Jake Paul box, I feel that he's taking this seriously. I do believe that he genuinely wants to be a boxer. I don't think he's fought anyone to where I would consider him a good one or anything of the sorts. But I do think that he takes it seriously, and he's not like all these other celebrities boxing just to box. But that takes me into our next subject here, and that is, does Woodley have any striking skill left? Now, as I said earlier, he had hand surgery as well as shoulder surgery, and that was actually on his right shoulder, which is, of course, where he likes to throw that big right hand. For those of you who don't know, the right overhand has been Tyron Woodley's go-to for years, and like you said earlier, that's going to be the big thing Jake Paul's going to have to avoid if he wants to win this fight. So I'm not too sure how badly those surgeries are going to affect his striking and how much Woodley truly does have left.
Yeah, me either. Striking, to me, unless you totally, get out of shape, that's something you totally lose. Like, I'm sure he'll have his precision and things of that nature, but the question is, can he land any? Can he land on the chin? And how good is Paul's chin? That's what I really want to see, because this is the strongest puncher he's fought yet. So it's gonna be interesting to see, does he have the chin to make it in boxing? And for me, this is a tale of reinvention. That's why I don't really want to hate on the Paul brothers. They reinvented themselves very well, going from YouTubers who don't really get that kind of respect in athletics, period, to actually putting on these huge shows, which are entertaining, at least. But it's gonna be interesting to see if Paul can actually fight a fighter, and if Woodley still has any in the tank.
Yeah, and I think both these guys have a lot to prove coming in this fight, as you said. Obviously, Woodley, we want to know how much he has left, because in his past couple fights, it just kind of looked like a throw the overhand and hope one of them lands. He hasn't fought very technically in the past couple years, at least in the UFC, so it'll be interesting here to see how much he has left, as you said. And for Jake, I think this is a big test for him, fighting not necessarily a true boxer, but definitely a real striker and a guy who has experience. It's a guy who obviously, he's going to have precision. He's going to have, good timing. He's going to have a good read on what Paul does. And I think even if Paul is able to go the distance with him, I think it'd be a major feat. And I said myself, I give him way more respect if he goes the distance or, God forbid, knocks out a guy like Tyron Woodley. And that's a guy who he's got quite the chin on him. A guy he's taken some shots. He's fought some great guys. Fought Wonderboy Thompson, took head kick after head kick. Fought Robbie Lawler, great striker, took shot after shot. Fought Vicente Luque, stayed up for 2.5 rounds before he finally couldn't go anymore. This is a guy he's not going to go out. He's not going to get knocked down easy. And Woodley's not like Askren. Askren got knocked out in 7 seconds. His career was ruined right there. He had no more to lose. He was willing to take that fall, take his money, and live with the embarrassment. That was already there. For Woodley, this is a different story. I think his legacy could be horribly tarnished if he loses tonight. And I think that's going to be a big thing. So we've given you guys a little bit of analysis, some background information. It's time for the moment you've been waiting for, the predictions. And this is the toughest part of the entire thing because I really could see this fight going either way. Like with Ben Askren, I felt kind of confident that it was either going to be going to the distance or Jake was going to knock him out. I knew Ben wasn't going to knock out Jake Paul, but with this, it's like there's a real chance that Tyron Woodley can knock out Jake Paul. And I got to say, it would be crazy to see how Jake Paul would even try to respond to that. When you've been hyping yourself up so much, you lose. There's no more moving up and up and up. If you lose, you're stuck there. You got to either fight even or that might even be the end of it. So I want to get your prediction first, and then I'll give my thoughts and go into mine.
All right, my predictions is it goes the distance. True fighting fans are going to say Woodley won by points. You know, he probably connected more percentage of his punches, but the Paul brothers are gonna cheer like they won as well because they went the distance. And I think I've never seen a fighter or fighters, the Paul brothers, who are so happy to lose sometimes. Like losing to them, unless they get knocked out, is still a W for them. So, it's crazy. So unless Woodley knocks him out, he almost loses regardless.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too. And I was actually gonna go the same way and say, you know, and that's what they did a lot with the Floyd fight when he fought Logan Paul is Logan was able to landed some nice shots every once in a while, but Floyd clearly won rounds and he was more consistent, he was more accurate, landing more punches in less attempts, and he got hit less. He does hitting and not getting hit. It's the fundamentals of boxing, and he does it to perfection. Even at age 42, 43, was still able to do it. But I think this fight will be the same way. I think Woodley is going to win rounds. And if Woodley doesn't get, and I could see it, I could see Woodley maybe in the last 2 to 3 rounds, maybe managing to get the knockout, not necessarily because of, you know, actually putting him out, but Jake Paul just getting gassed. And I think that's something, that would be my prediction, is I think Tyron Woodley wins in the later rounds by knockout. I don't believe in Jake Paul's gas tank until I see it. So my call is going to be a Woodley knockout. And I still don't know, honestly, if it's an 8 or a 10 or a 12 round fight, but
it's an 8 round.
8 round. Okay.
Which is good. It's not bad at all.
Yeah. So final 2 to 3 rounds, Woodley will get a knockout. Jake Paul's gas tank runs out. That's what's going to be my call for this fight. But as you guys heard, obviously a lot on the line for both of these guys, and we're just going to have to wait and see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. I would love to see a knockout, but as somebody who watches boxing, knockouts don't just happen all the time. It has to be the perfect, scenario. But as long as there's a good fight, then I'll be entertained.
Okay, and I'm going to give you one final question here for me and you to answer as we close this one out. If Jake Paul does win, who do you think comes next?
If Jake Paul wins, I think he needs to go into boxing, like real boxing. I want to see him go up the ranks, literally. But I know that's not as fun because he's not fighting people with names. Yeah. But yeah, it's tough. It's very tough because I don't know which UFC fighters are going to. Yeah. I don't want to say stoop down to this level, but shift to something like this. So I'm excited to see the journey, man.
Yeah. Well, I think the main guys right now who actually I think would take this fight is Dylan Dennis, who is a guy who works and trains consistently with Conor McGregor, a great talented young boxer.
Wait, isn't that under Woodley? Like celebrity wise?
Maybe star power wise, yeah, but when it comes to their relationship, those guys have been going back and forth, talking to shit to each other forever. And it's actually to the point now where every time Jake Paul posts anything, Dylan Dennis is in the comments, you know, talking some kind of shit to him, and he doesn't even respond to him anymore. I don't know if it's I don't want to fight you because I realize you're good enough to beat me, or if it's I'm too famous for you, you're not even worth my time. So I'm not sure what exactly is going on there, but I think the perfect next fight would have to be a guy in the UFC who can box but is on their way out. And to me, that looks like one of the Diaz brothers.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't know.
I would love to see that.
I don't know if you know, but Nick Diaz is actually scheduled to fight, I believe, in the next month or two. He's actually going to be rematching Robbie Lawler. They originally fought 17 years ago. They're going to get the rematch.
Wow.
So I think Nick's a little too old, but I think Nate should take a fight with Jake Paul if Jake Paul does come out with the win.
That would be his most prominent fight yet. It'd be so much fun. And I believe the Diaz brothers, I don't see them, you know, taking a pay cut, you know, or
nope.
Getting paid for throwing or something like that. I think those boys will go into the ring and throw some hands. It's just tough because fighting UFC fighters, they have so many other instincts than boxers.
Well,
so
that's why I like Diaz. That's why I like Diaz, because Diaz is a true boxer. He's a great BJJ guy. He trains with all the Gracie brothers. He's got a ground game, but when you look at Nate Diaz, that is a boxer. Even just in his stance alone and everything. Like, you could even look like a guy like Conor, but to me, Conor, the same with Woodley, is a striker. There's a big difference between being a striker and being a boxer. Exactly. Nate Diaz is a boxer. So I think if Jake Paul somehow manages to win this fight, I think Nate Diaz is the next step up. But hey, man, before we head out here, I'm gonna give you a quick second because you did come on here, you did help me out, hook me up with this video here. Yes, so I'm gonna give you a second. You know, if you got anything you want to plug, you know, I'll put all the links in the description so everybody can check you out. So, you know, do your thing.
Yes, sir. Appreciate having me on, bro. I know it's very early in the morning. You can find me Papi Solo on TikTok, Papi Solo on Twitch, King Papi Solo on Twitter. You know, connect with me. I do mostly NBA, but I love all sports. Follow me everywhere. Appreciate you, man.
Okay, and he's got a podcast as well. Don't forget to tell him about that.
New Rivals podcast is fairly new. We're 3 episodes in. Me and Light Out Sports. You can find it on Player's Choice on YouTube. New Rivals _ on Instagram and TikTok. It's Lakers versus Nets theme. New rivalry, and you know I'm repping for Brooklyn, man. Let's go Nets in 4.
Absolutely, brother. Appreciate you having on. But for now, we are going to head out. And listen, guys, I want to give a quick announcement with the NFL season coming up. We will be going back to weekly prediction analysis videos. You guys could definitely expect to see my guy Papi Solo back on at least once for a little prediction video. He'll give his little analysis. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Hopefully y'all boys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments who you think is going to win the fight and how they're going to do it. But, hey, man, it's been your boy CG and my guy Papi Solo. And until next time, we out. Peace.